The Ladies' Mile district was Midtown New York until World War I. All America goes to New York for its shopping when it can, wrote King's Handbook of 1893. Periodicals of the era called it the shopping district or the central business district. The neighborhood today is being redeveloped by the same businesses that were here historically. Specialty shops, publishers, photographers, and other design-related businesses. The shop fronts of the neighborhood's most famous building, the Flatiron, were lovingly restored by an Italian clothing firm, the CP Company. Studies have shown that restored and well-regulated historic districts increase profits for merchants because they invite pedestrian strolling. Merchants such as Armani on Fifth Avenue at 16th Street and the Book Friends Cafe on West 18th Street have made important restorations. Unfortunately, such standards are not consistently followed. On a number of occasions, the Landmarks Commission has abandoned its standards for an offbeat design, which they deem good modern design. This was the rationale used when merchants on 8th Street in Greenwich Village were permitted to install cheap aluminum shop fronts, boxed plastic canopies, and gaudy signage. We hope the same fate will not befall Ladies' Mile. The historic texture of Ladies' Mile reflects the taste of the American Renaissance for opulence and ornament. In a time of crisis for New York City, careful restoration of the neighborhood could increase civic pride and remind us of New York's golden age. During the Ladies' Mile era, 1870 to 1914, New York City became America's commercial and cosmopolitan center, upstaging Boston and Philadelphia. The neighborhood was the center for publishing, retailing, fashion, interior design, and architectural design. Ladies' Mile celebrates New York as a city. These vista shots were made on Fifth Avenue. At 95 Fifth, the changes made by the Kenneth Cole shoe store dismayed the preservation community. Rusting chicken wire was placed in the transom space, a corner was sliced off the building, bulkheads were omitted, the paint on the cheap aluminum storefront is peeling. On the side street was a surviving bay window shop front, which might have been replicated. Instead, Kenneth Cole defaced a corner of Fifth Avenue and 3 large window bays along 17th Street. The first shops that moved into Ladies' Mile came here to be near their customers. Residents of the district included James Gordon Bennett, Edith Wharton, Samuel Morse, Horace Greeley, Chester Arthur, William Cullen Bryant, George Post, the Bradley Martins, and the Roosevelts. The townhouses of the area which survive are remnants of a very significant layer of the district's history. One of the district's former mansions stood here at the corner of 16th Street and Fifth Avenue. The mansion was built for the Jones family in 1851. The Athenaeum Club moved there in 1859. Later, the building was occupied by Weber Pianos. Women's Wear Daily was born in Ladies' Mile in 1909 on East 21st Street. Researching the townhouses at 5052 West 22nd Street was great fun, like solving a mystery. The first clue I had about their history was an ad in Vogue magazine of 1895 for Higgins and Cider, fine china and rich cut glass. It was great fun reading these old Vogue magazines. They have a wonderful library for my research. A year later, when I was researching in the Stowe Day Library in Hartford, which specializes in the decorative arts of the 19th century, I stumbled across an old catalog for Higgins and Cider, illustrating the interior. Whole rooms were devoted to a single kind of china, such as platters for serving wild game. Then I found some real Higgins and Cider plates in an antique store, which had stamped on the back that they were made especially for Higgins and Cider by Limoges. These are my most treasured plates. Higgins and Cider was so successful that they opened an outlet in Newport and expanded into 2 more buildings on 22nd Street and built a new building on 5355 West 21st. Ladies Mile was a retail center for china and glass. Near Higgins and Cider were these two department stores, Hugh O'Neill and Adams Dry Goods, which were said in 1909 to be major importers of china and glass. Both buildings have been restored by their owners. Israel Taub, who owns Adams Dry Goods buildings, has recognized the benefits of landmark designation and has testified that it is the perfect marriage of art and industry. Studies have shown that careful restoration enhances property values. To be fair to property values like Israel Taub, who is also restoring the old B. Altman building on 6th Avenue, it is important that the Landmarks Commission insist on rigorous restoration throughout the district. Historic districts that are sensitively restored are important to the economy of the whole city. They attract both tenants and tourists. The Times reported this month that while vacancy rates are 26.6% in the financial district, they are only 13.5% in Midtown South, which includes Ladies Mile. I am happy to report that restorations are taking place on 6th Avenue and important retail businesses are moving in. Barnes & Noble will be going into the Adams Dry Goods building. The district contains a rich assortment of buildings, types, and sizes. Townhouses were gracefully converted to commercial uses, often with the insertion of large bay windows. Architects of new skyscrapers made their buildings fit into the neighborhood by the use of small-scale details. Union Square is the southern gateway to the district. This block, which is between 16th and 18th Streets on Broadway, includes a former townhouse that was once the tailoring shop of Herman Bergdorf, who would form Bergdorf Goodman. The buildings are intact except for the shop fronts. Another intact block, the Paragon Building, used to be the Charles Ditson Company, an important music publisher. The McIntyre Building, this is the typical building type of Ladies Mile, a store and loft building. A tall, slender building with a considerable amount of glass on the lower floor for the display of retail goods. Bay windows were popular for shop fronts. Most bay windows have been lost. It would be beneficial to the district if merchants replaced them. Bay windows contribute to the characteristic texture of Ladies Mile. The interior design industry has important roots in Ladies Mile. This building used to contain Van Tyne's, which claimed to have the largest selection of Oriental goods in the whole world. Herter Brothers also used to be in this building that was on East 18th Street, and my husband's photography studio was in this building. Arnold Constable at Broadway and 19th Street had one of the finest mansards in New York. At the right, one of the finest mansards in Paris is the Hotel de Ville. French styles were the fashion in clothes as well as architecture. The W&J Sloan Building, where the Vanderbilts, Morgans, and Astors bought their furniture and carpets. Today, it is the ABC Carpet Company and is still selling gorgeous Oriental carpets. Lord & Taylor was a pioneer of the neighborhood, opening in 1870. Here you could buy copies of Worth Styles. People also flocked to Lord & Taylor to ride its elevator. That was a new invention of the time, which was decorated with a sofa and gas lights and highly praised in the press. This is the Warren Building, designed by Stanford White. At the left, a garlanded bracket by Stanford White for the Warren Building, similar to the brackets on Gabrielle's Palace on the Place de la Concorde. When we showed photographs of Ladies Mile to French historians, they were awed by the creative way in which our architects had used these forms from history in the development of the skyscraper. At the right is Stanford White. Embroideries and trimmings were once sold in the Gillette Building by McKim, Mead, and White. At the right, Charles McKim. The district contains a wonderful collection of architectural styles. At the left, a second Empire Hotel building on East 21st Street, which contains Salter's Market, celebrated for its terrapin stew. and American Express. Down the street, a Queen Anne building by Bruce Price, who was the father of Emily Post. Across the street at 28 East 21st Street is the former studio of Richard Morris Hunt, who designed one of the world's first skyscrapers, and probably in that building. Hunt's wife played an important role in the aesthetic movement in America, a phenomenon which was celebrated by an exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum. Catherine Hunt was one of the founders of the Society of Decorative Art, along with Candace Wheeler, whose tapestry you see at the right. The school trained women in the decorative arts, and their work, including Wheeler's tapestry, were sold on 21st Street. Ladies' Mile was important to the art of embroidery. At one time, there were over 100 embroiderers in the district. The Society of Decorative Art was an important pioneer in this art. The society was also a model for other such societies formed in other American cities. Cartier was another important figure in the aesthetic movement. At the right, glass designed by Cartier, who is said to have influenced Louis Comfort Tiffany. For 30 years, Cartier's was located at 144 Fifth, the former townhouse in the left-hand slide. Another former residential building in the district with an intriguing history stands at West 24th Street. City records confirm that it was once leased by F.A.O. Schwartz, and there's a rumor that this is the house with the red velvet swing in which Stanford White rendezvoused with Evelyn Nesbit. Stern's department store was located in several buildings along 22nd and 23rd Street. Many shops on 23rd Street extended through the block to 22nd or 24th. It left the 23rd Street facade of Flint's, an important furniture store which was designed by Henry Hardenberg, who also designed the plaza. At right, the 24th Street facade. 23rd Street contains Stearns, Bonwitz, Butterick, furniture stores, publishing companies, F.A.O. Schwartz, Dutton, Putnam, and Edith Wharton's former home. The third building from the left, which was remodeled into a shop for McCutcheon's. At the right, a skyscraper which contained part of Stern's department store. Many important architects maintained their offices in the district. Henry Hardenberg designed and worked in this building at 23rd and 5th. Stanford White worked a few blocks south in the Mohawk building. At the right, the doorway to the Presbyterian building. Ladies' Mile is very important to the history of publishing. By 1905, there were at least 140 publishers in the district. Ground floor shops in the Presbyterian building included Crouch and Fitzgerald and Knobby Pianos. Other tenants included Strand Wallpapers, Vogue Magazine, Little Brown, Lippincott, Wright Corsets, dressmakers, and architects. When Stanford White looked out of his office window, he saw this building, which once contained Rogers Brass Beds, a firm which still exists today. The firm of McKim, Mead & White also designed the Judge Building, detailed with coins similar to those which are on the Louvre at the right. This building has been lovingly restored by the New York Times. Armani is in the ground floor. The Times and Armani have been very good neighbors in Ladies' Mile. The Flatiron is one of the many buildings in the district which demonstrates the creativity of the American architects in adapting Renaissance forms to the skyscraper. At the left, you see the top of the Flatiron, and at the right, the bottom of the Louvre. The middle of the Flatiron here and the bottom of the Louvre. The Flatiron building is the most famous building in the world, but it's not the only Flatiron building. Phelan Building in San Francisco here, where commercial buildings of the same era tend to be broader and shorter. The skyscraper at the left in San Francisco is officially named the Flatiron. The Fort Worth Flatiron, which is at the right, is not on a triangular site, suggesting a deliberate imitation of New York's Flatiron. There are Flatirons in Atlanta and one in Chicago. The Flatiron and the Toy Center building at the left are gateway buildings to Ladies Mile on Fifth Avenue. At the right, the Masonic Temple building of 1913 is a gateway building on 6th Avenue. Meineke and Frank designed the Toy Center building in 1909. Meineke and Frank, who once worked for George Post, designed over 10% of Ladies Mile. This firm designed 200 buildings in New York and made an important contribution to New York's sense of place as a city during the American Renaissance. These two architects were very important to New York's sense of place, which still exists in these neighborhoods. Meineke and Frank did mostly handsome skyscrapers, such as 10 to 16 West 20th at left. It is interesting to see the same firm's work in their remodeling of a former stable, which was once part of the famous Madison Square Theater. Details from the Meineke and Frank building at 17th Street and from the Théâtre du Châtelet. Ornament from the top of a Meineke and Frank skyscraper on 18th Street and a doorway in the 16th arrondissement in Paris on a building of about the same time. Another important publishing building, the Methodist Book Concern of 1890. Other important publishers in Ladies Mile included Frank Munsey, Dress Magazine, which later became Vanity Fair, Forbes, Oxford University Press, Rand McNally, Putnam, Dutton, Vogue, Houghton Mifflin, Scribner, Avon, Goupil of Paris, La Mode Parisienne, and Henry Holt. Diversity and harmony in different styles and materials was typical of the architecture of the district. This is 6th Avenue. Carefully designed windows are important to the fabric of the district. Some businessmen who moved to Ladies Mile from uptown have told me how much they loved the windows because they could actually open them. Eric Brothers on 6th Avenue, which might have been inspired by the building on the right, the École des Beaux-Arts. Many American architects were studying at the École during the Ladies Mile era. Henry Siegel came from Chicago, where he participated in the famous World's Fair of 1893, which launched the City Beautiful movement across America. At the left, Richard Morris Hunt's building, which was the centerpiece of the fair. Siegel obviously asked his architects, Delemos and Cordes, to put on his building everything he'd seen at the fair, the whole vocabulary of the American Beaux-Arts. For many years, the failure of Tishman Speyer to maintain this building was detrimental to the economic development of 6th Avenue. The developer hired lawyers and the architect James Polshek and tried to get permission to destroy the historic vistas of Ladies Mile by building a 38-story apartment building on top of Siegel Cooper. The architect actually tried to claim that his building would be invisible, and many of the landmarks commissioners seemed to believe him. So Truman and the architect Son Scully collaborated with photographs and drawings to show how exceedingly visible a 38-story skyscraper would be throughout all of Ladies Mile. Truman also made a model of the proposed building out of foam core. In the end, the Landmarks Commission rejected the Tishman Speyer proposal, but the effort wasted the limited resources of the Landmarks Commission and the preservation community, and it blocked the development of 6th Avenue. Now, with Bed Bath & Beyond and the Siegel Cooper building, the renaissance of 6th Avenue is well underway. There was an etiquette about the way architects at the turn of the century designed for avenues and side streets. Here you see that Delemos and Cordes designed a much plainer side street elevation for Siegel Cooper. In France, the same etiquette was practiced by one of their leading architects, Victor Laloux, at the turn of the century. At the left, the boulevard facade of the Crédit Lyonnais and its side street facade at the right. Laloux's atelier at the École was the most popular one among the American students. The Spinning Wheel building by James Baker, who also designed the Presbyterian building on Fifth Avenue. The protection of windows is a major concern of the preservation community. Present guidelines used by the Landmarks Commission do not adequately protect Ladies Mile windows. If you look carefully at historic windows, you will see there are many small moldings and details on the window surrounds as well as the windows. These small details catch the light and contributes shadow and depth and texture to Ladies' Mile. Replacement windows, which are devoid of such details, give a building a blank look. Windows are the mirror of a building's soul. Old sash windows with weights can be repaired and made to last forever. They should be treated with the same respect we lavish upon our Chippendale furniture. Aluminum windows are the polyester of the window industry. Madame Thompson, who advertised in Vogue that she was located behind Stearns, sold hair ornaments in the far left building on 22nd Street. We found periodicals such as Vogue to be very helpful in learning who occupied the neighborhood. Other businesses on West 22nd Street, the Arnold Bazaar, a regular Vogue advertiser, and Stearns department store. Those in search of the Gibson girl look came to 21st Street, to the cluster of corset parlors here. Madame Gardner, who was one of the most important, claimed that her corset fashions were endorsed in the highest terms by physicians and dressmakers everywhere. Left an interesting red brick building on West 21st, which has coins similar to those on the Place Dauphine, built in the 17th century. Side street doorways are especially carefully detailed, just as ladies' dresses and petticoats were decorated with embroideries and laces. You will see many handsome brackets, such as these by Meineke and Frank on West 20th Street, which are similar to brackets on the Louvre, which is shown at the right. Rustication and lions brought a touch of palatial grandeur to narrow side street buildings. At the right, the entrance to Schumacher Fabrics on West 20th Street. The banded columns of the district were probably inspired by the banded columns which originated in France several centuries ago. At left, the Louvre, and at the right, that French idea in a typical store and loft building in Ladies' Mile. The YWCA building on East 15th Street once included an art school. There were a number of art schools in the district for women. Dress Magazine was another magazine that was useful in our researching the district. It was published on East 21st Street on the same block with Women's Wear Daily. Fashion magazines and advertising, not considered typical source material for historians, proved to be very important to us in defining the importance of the Ladies' Mile district. The district is very important for its early and creative use of terracotta. Here, terracotta ornament on East 16th Street. In these next slides, we are going to quickly run through the ornamental details that recur and create such a harmonious sense of place in the Ladies' Mile district. Cupolas were popular. One of the most visible is that on the Sommer Piano Building at 22nd Street and 5th. And ocular windows at the right, the one on the Judge Building by McKim, Mead & White. At the left, an ocular building on a building by Parfit Brothers, who did a great deal of important work in Brooklyn. Rustication is a recurring characteristic, as on West 18th Street by Governor Atterbury. Archways are everywhere. Vistas of both side streets and avenues are enriched with small-scale ornamental detail. At the left, East 20th Street. At the right, 5th Avenue. East 16th Street. Louis Corn's brick and stone skyscraper, which fronts on 5th, the Geraldine Building, is an important publishing building by Alfred Zucker, and there's another Louis Corn building shown at the far right. Carefully crafted capitals. Brackets were popular in both New York and Paris at the turn of the century. Roof stops were very picturesque. Caryatids here by George Keister and Louis Corn. Ornamental details over doorways. East 17th Street and Adams Dry Goods. Creative windows on both avenues and side streets. One of the pleasures of walking around the district is watching for lions and finding them in unexpected places. Lions were an important symbol of the era. Lions ornamented pages in Vogue. They were used in ads for bicycles, fine silver, and underwear Today, the Ritz Hotels uses a lion as their symbol, as does Anne Klein. The lion population in Ladies' Mile is extraordinarily high. Lions frequently perch along cornices, as on West 18th Street at the left, the St. Anne Building, and there's the Arc de Triomphe on the right. Siegel Cooper Building and the Palace of Justice. Adams Dry Goods, Credit Lyonnais by Victor Laloux. Louis Korn's Lion on Fifth Avenue. The Siegel Cooper Lion by Delemos and Cords. The Scribner Building Lion by Ernest Flagg. 26 West 17th Street by William Frone. The lion on the East 17th Street building at the left, and at the right, a lion from the Gare d'Orsay by Victor Laloux of 1900.